So, I'm at 500 subscribers, and I kind of already blew my big celebration thing, brain power, on the 400 subscriber thing. I did a giant door with some flying machines, and then I did a glass version of it. So, I don't really have anything for this. I built a clock before. I could have built a calculator, but Disco kind of built the best calculator. I mean, none of you probably know that. FV Disco. Anyway, duck door. Yeah, so actually I'm going to continue my tangent. So FV Disco, if you look up his channel on YouTube ages ago, he built this crazy calculator in Minecraft that is tiny, and I cannot wrap my brain around how the hell it even does the thing. But this door looks like a duck, and you might say, there's not ducks in Minecraft, there's only chickens. No, there's ducks. Okay, shut up, it's a duck. It's not a chicken, it's a duck. So if we press this button, our duck opens up, and then we can see our ducks that are definitely ducks. They are ducks. This slab and hopper thing is no reference to anything that happened, and they're ducks. So we press the button, and there's a duck. And we're in the duck temple with ducks. And then if we press it again, the duck opens up, and we're back out. Duck time. Yeah, I made an entire temple of duck, okay, don't judge me. Right, so here's the redstone for this. Honestly, there is like nothing here, so I could probably shift the double extender stuff one block across, because that was the entire thing that made this bit one block wider, but it just made it all easier. This top bit is really weird. Actually, that's really weird. The bottom bit is like more complicated than the top bit, but somehow I've managed to make the top bit have way more just random stuff everywhere. Okay, well, yeah, the input is this block here, so you just need to power this redstone. And if we actually look, there's some pretty interesting stuff that goes on with it. Probably shouldn't destroy that redstone, but so if you pay attention to the bottom bit, we actually have this gets pushed up, and we push blocks in at the end, so there's a gap here for the double extender to push that block from there to there. But then these blocks at the side get pushed across so that they fill in the floor gap, so when your door is shut, you know, the floor is filled in, it's all nice. But then when we open it, look, it actually gets pushed out. Well, that didn't work. Let's do with somehow what I've done here. Whatever, I'll just go to the working one. So okay, here's the version that works. I don't know why the other one didn't work, but yeah, anyway, redstone. Bam. So as you can see, when it opens the floor, if we pay attention, the floor shuffles about. So on the closing, no, the opening, sorry, on the opening, we have this piston here, which pushes this block across to push these blocks here. And then it pulls it back. So there's now a gap here for this block to get taken down to there via the double extender. So on the closing, we actually use this piston here to power it via this observer. So because this redstone torch, when we turn this redstone off, which means the door is opening, this observer goes to there and powers this redstone, so that pushes the floor across to do this whole rigmarole. But then when we turn it back on, the observer actually pulls back above this repeater, so it doesn't set off these pistons, because otherwise they push these pistons outside, and we don't want that to happen. So that leaves us double extender free to push these blocks up, and then we set off these pistons on the left to push the entire floor back in. Now one thing is, you'll notice there's a furnace here, and that's because this furnace stops this piston pushing all the blocks across when we open it. So if we look, this block comes down, and then this piston actually tries to go off, but because there's a furnace here, it can't push everything. So that actually saved me a bunch of redstone, because it meant instead of having to make this bit set off one time but not the other time, I could just set it off both times and block it with the furnace. So that's how I did the bottom bit, and that piston layout was way smaller than anything else I could come up with, and it enabled the door to be tiny, so it's like 3 wide, it only sticks out more than the pistons on this one side here. And I think I could actually remove that, but I just don't want to go through it. I've got a working version, so, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, you will notice this left side takes a while to go off, and that's because it's timed with these pistons. So we just have observers and note blocks going down there. I maybe could change that, but... So, it's a bit janky opening. But I'm really proud of the design. I think it's tiny, it's really cool. It's a duck, you know? How many of you can say you've got a door like a duck? Well, probably a few of you now, because you've seen this one. So you're like, man, duck door. Okay, to build this, you're going to need a 3x8 area. The resources you need are 8 note blocks, 24 observers, 20 sticky pistons, 16 redstone dust, 15 repeaters, a target block, 3 slabs, 2 normal pistons, 3 furnaces, and a bunch of blocks to put all that stuff on. For the inside of the door, that was just 9 quartz, 2 black concrete, and 2 orange concrete. And then you'll also need some more quartz or some other block for the outside. Okay, your door is 3 blocks off the floor, and it's skewed to the left quite heavily, so your left hand wall is actually only 1 block away from left, so if we go 1 block across like that, that's where the wall is. And the floor is 3 blocks up, so your wall is like that. And then the rest of it is like this. So I'll do it in the colours I actually did originally, so we've got the beak. Then we've got the white quartz around the outside. So it looks like this. Then the bit behind that is just going to be a bunch of white, except for the second block from the top on the walls is the eyes, so that's black, so like that. And then we just mirror the first side for the last bit, like that. So I'm going to go to this bit, we'll call this the front where the door is on the left. And we'll do the pistons. So you do double extender of sticky pistons like that. Then if we come to the right side, we do a sticky piston. And we'll actually put a furnace behind this because that stops it moving, and that's what we want. Then there'll actually be one of our wall blocks, which I'm using quartz, next to these blocks while it's open, and there's a normal piston aiming into that. So now in the middle block, we actually want a sticky piston just underneath that, so at the top like that, with the block on top of it. Now what we want to do is mirror this thing we've done on the front on the back as well. So we do the double extender in the middle aiming up, but now on the left side is the sticky piston, and on the right is the normal piston. I mean, just remember they're the same size as they were there. I've done that 1 block too far forward, whoops. There we go. And the block in front of it. So these are both normal pistons, these are sticky pistons, and furnace behind it to stop it being moved. So to get these side bits in the middle, we just do sticky pistons aiming in like that. Same on this side. So destroy this bottom one, and then 4 sticky pistons aiming sideways. And then we'll fall back in our blocks, so quartz except for the second from the top, which is black concrete like that. Could also be coal, anything that's black. Okay, so now we're at what I'm calling the front again, and we're doing the top bit now. So what we actually want to do is in the middle, go 3 blocks up and put a block, and then we can destroy this block here and do double extender aiming downwards. And if we go to the right of this, just diagonally above this piston at the side, we want a piston aiming into the ceiling, and that's because it pushes a block in. So that's all our pistons for actually pushing blocks. We are actually going to have some that do observers, but in terms of the ones that actually are pushing the blocks, that's all of them. So now we'll get to building the actual redstone for it. So our input is on the right side, and the input block is next to this top piston at the side. We have a block, and that has redstone on it. Then to power these lower pistons, we do a block here, and a block diagonally above, so it goes in the staircase up to the top, with redstone on them. And that'll power all of them, because this redstone will power this piston, and then by block update this piston gets set off. This redstone power block at the side will power this piston, and then by block updates the one underneath will be powered. So that's all good. To get power to the bottom, we have 2 things that go on. The first thing is the double extenders, and then we also have this piston on the left that shuffles the floor across, and then there's also this piston on the right that pushes it in. So that's 3 things, but shut up. So we need these all to go off kind of differently. So the first thing I'm going to do is the double extender, because that goes off both times, so that's just kind of part of the circuit. So if we're aiming at the front to get the double extenders, if we go to this right side we just did stuff on and go underneath. So we go underneath this furnace, and then there's this block next to the piston. We do an observer aiming down out of that. That goes into a note block, and that's because that will set off other observers. And then there's a block coming out that with a repeater on 4 ticks coming out of the note block into a block. Now, just because it's going to be a pain in the ass to do if we build the other stuff, I'm actually going to do some of the later stuff first. So on the left hand side of the double extenders, we place a note block next to each of the bottom pistons, and then we do an observer in the middle of these pistons aiming towards these note blocks from this side, and that goes into a block so that it'll power those note blocks. And then above those note blocks we have observers that aim upwards, and they'll power the pistons when they're there to do the second part of the extension to get a block there or pull it back. So same on the back side. This observer we did in the middle gets triggered by a note block on the other side, and that has a note block on either side of it as well. And I've just realised these don't need to be note blocks at all, so we'll just replace those with normal blocks, saves us some redstone. And to power these we have observers like this, so an observer into this block, and then we have an observer aiming down next to that. So this observer is kind of aiming from the furnace to the floor, and this double extension has just gone off, so we'll put the block back. So we also copy this on the other side. So observer going into the block into the bottom piston, and then one aiming down from the furnace but one block below, like so. And we need to move our block back. So now we're back at the front, and what we do is this repeater going into block, we do a block next to that with a redstone dust on it. Then we have a repeater on 3 ticks on top of this observer, and that's because when the repeater turns on, it will set those observers off, which will set this piston off, which pushes the top piston up. And then a bit later these observers here get set off, which will trigger this block and make the piston push the block up to there. So that's why that's just happened. But then when it turns off, this piston will go off again and pull the top piston back down 1 block. So that's why we do a repeater on top of an observer. Then we have a 4-tick repeater and another 4-tick repeater. And these just create enough delay that when this sticky piston gets pulled down from here to here, this repeater will go off, set the sticky piston off, and that'll pull the block down from there to there. Talking of which, we're going to move this guy back now, and then we just need to copy this on the backside. So we do block, redstone, repeater on 3 ticks, repeater on 4 ticks, and then a repeater on 4 ticks, and we move this beak back down to there. So this observer will get set off when this piston pushes out, and that sets off the double extenders. So to power these 2 sticky pistons that shuffle the floor across on the opening, we use a piston with an observer. So we do blocks along the back of these furnaces here like this, and we do a 2-tick repeater on this furnace at the front, and then redstone a 2-tick repeater aiming towards the back into a redstone dust and another redstone dust on top of the furnace to power the other piston. So above this redstone at the back we have a piston aiming to the front, and that has an observer aiming downwards on it, so that when the observer gets pushed out to this redstone it will power it. So that's how it only gets set off one time and not the other. So I have just realised I forgot a torch on my resources list, so yeah, we've got a redstone torch, but that goes on this block above the piston to power it. So you'll have noticed that your pistons and your floor got pushed across, so you'll have to put those back. So it's happened on both sides, right? So we just need these pistons to be 1 block forward again. Maybe it's worth putting some furnaces behind them while you're building. Okay, so that's most of the bottom done, except when this stuff is like this and this block gets pushed up to there, we're going to need to have to push the floor back with these pistons. So we actually do that from the top, but that means we're going to have to do the top sort of extension as well. So we'll just do that now. So moving to what I called the front again. So the first thing we want to do is push the top block down, and then we need to push this block above it so that then they can both get pushed down to there in the middle of the door. So the first thing we do is from our input block, we have a slab that is at the top above it like this. So place blocks like that and slab there. Destroy those blocks. Redstone on top of it there. So then we do a block to the side with redstone on it. Then a slab with redstone on it to stop it powering this piston here. Then we actually do an observer into a block. And that means that when this redstone turns on or off, this observer goes off and sets that piston off to push the block there. Or if the door is closed, it will pull that block up. So then again, we need to sell off this piston. So we actually do that from the other side. So we're around the back now. We place a redstone dust next to it, block above that. Block next to redstone dust with a repeater on 2 ticks going into the block to power the redstone dust. To power that, we do a slab above the torch so the torch doesn't power it with redstone on it. And that gets it around there. So next thing we need to do is push both of them down 1 block again. So they'll both be there. Oh yeah, actually I just realised this repeater is 3 ticks, not 2 ticks. Right, so 3 tick repeater here. And then on the other side of the block we do a 2 tick repeater into a block. Now the thing is, when these guys pull back up, we actually need the second piston here to stay on for longer. So that after the block gets pulled off, then it will retract and pull the block back. And yeah, that piston was not supposed to get destroyed. Whoops. So basically we just need to delay this piston so it pulls the block back as well. So we do that by the repeater we just placed block. We do a redstone on top of it, then a block next to that redstone, then a repeater coming out of that the other way on 2 ticks more into a block. And then on the other side of the block, we just do a block and another block with redstone dust on them. And then we want to block this redstone here connecting up to that with these 2 blocks at the front. So what's that sorted is when the blocks are out like this, they'll get pushed down there, fine. Then the top one will get pulled there and then there. But we still need to set off this double extender to get the final block. So that's what we're doing now. So the first thing is at the back, next to this redstone, this block next to the repeater should be a target block so that redstone isn't aiming at this piston, but is aiming at this repeater. Then next to this redstone, we do a sticky piston aiming sideways. Then coming out of that, there's an observer aiming towards the front. Now we're going to do a whole mess of observers. So aiming into the bottom piston out of these 2 will destroy this block, freeze. We do an observer aiming into it, so aiming from here into the bottom piston there. Then we do another one above, aiming in the same direction. Then to set off this bottom observer, we have an observer aiming downwards. So that should be aiming from the top down, as you can see by this arrow. And then there's one coming across out of it, so from here to here. And we set both those off with a repeater on 3 ticks, kind of like we did with the bottom one. That will only pull the block up to here, and we have to set the piston here off again, which I also forgot to put the block back on. There we go. So to do that, we need a bunch more observers. So we do 1 coming out, so from right to left, then 1 coming out of that, aiming at the front, then 2 aiming to the right, out of that one. So if you follow the arrows like that, into this block, and I had to do 4 because when I did less, the timing didn't work out, so I had to do 4. And that'll do the final thing of pulling the block from there to there. So now we just need to do these left pistons and the pushing the floor across. So we actually just do a bunch of delay. So if we go around the back where we have the repeater into the block, we do a 4-tick repeater on top of the next block, then a block with a 4-tick repeater, then an observer aiming downwards with a 4-tick repeater. So it'll turn on when you turn the lever on and turn off when you turn the lever off. So we can use it to observer these pistons by doing it into a note block and an observer and another note block. So first note block powers this piston, then this one block update, then second note block this one and this one with a block update, and then a final observer powers the piston here to push the floor across, and then to get the next piston, we do an observer coming out of that one into that one. So that observer is going here to here, as you can see from the arrow. And now to turn it on and off, we just have to power this set of redstone here. So I'll use a lever here. Bam. Alright, so the bottom double extender, if we go down to this first repeater, I did it on 3 ticks, it should actually be on 2 ticks. So that's what was making it take too long. So how a block should be is this floor should have been pushed across like that. And also this block in the middle was in the wrong place, so that should now be in the middle there. And then if we go to the other side, the beak should be there, and the floor should be there, and destroy this one on the left side, so there's a gap in front of these pistons. like so. So now with our fixed repeaters, if we turn this off, there you go. This piston still isn't going off, so I have missed the observer for that. Around what I was calling the front, if we go to the right, and then this note block here next to the repeater with a note block below it, we actually need an observer aiming from this side to that side. And that's a real pain because we've put all these blocks here. So what I'll do is this repeater aiming into this piston, destroy that. Observer aiming from that note block into the middle. Then we'll place our block back. And our piston on top of it on 4 ticks. So if we flick the lever now, there we go. And if we flick it off. Now I will be uploading a world of download of this to my Planet Minecraft account, so I'll link that in the description and hopefully I'll remember to do it. So that will help you see how wrong you got it. So yeah, thanks for 500 subs. I hope this tutorial wasn't too bad. It's kind of a pain to make, but you know, comes with territory of duck. And I'll catch you in the next one. I've been Idle.